Hey everyone, this video will be filmed around New Year, so Happy New Year. Today, I'm going to be talking about a research study. Primarily, the questions I want to answer are which approach to savings is the most effective in terms of saving the most amount of money. There's probably a whole bunch of research studies around this, but the one in particular that I stumbled upon was done in collaboration with the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, CFPB, and also Common Sense Labs and Capital, the personal finance app. So CFPB, as you know, is a government organization that helps with personal finance. A very important site, one of my favorite sites when it comes to personal finance. There's not much about Common Sense Labs online, but from what we do know and what they tell us is that they are a research group that designs and tests financial solutions for low to middle income folks. One caveat here is that they are funded by large banks. Very important to know. Last one here is Capital for Q is a personal finance app that helps people save to reach their financial goals. Like most personal finance apps, you do have to pay for them. I believe it's a monthly fee. With all that said, I'm not sponsored by any of them. It would be awesome if I was, but I would disclose it if I was, but I'm not. Right, so I just happened to stumble upon the study and wanted to share its findings with you. The dataset that we're looking at today is provided by Capital. Roughly, we're looking at 127,243 savings goals across a one-year period, specifically from January 1st, 2019 to September 28th, 2020. Those savings goals are basically people decide, hey, I'm going to set a goal to save for my emergency fund or for my vacation fund, and I will work toward that goal over a one-year period. And the data has been cleaned and filtered for any goals that don't make sense or weren't actively worked on. So who exactly are the users of Capital? Are they even a user base that we can relate to or understand? The average maximum for each goal was $482, while the medium was $153. By no means are the users of Capital wealthy, but they do have enough money and enough income to save. Now, those are folks that we can relate to, right? You're not rich, but you have enough to save. So what's the most effective and optimal way to save money? The research itself has its own research questions and own set of goals that they're looking at. I'm going to drop it here. You can pause the video to read them. But the ones that I'm looking into are mainly what's the most effective way to save and how effective. The research breaks down each of the saving approaches into rules. This is how the app helps you save. The most popular rule of them all, with 81% of these goals applying this rule, is the contingent spending rule. The contingent spending rule is exactly what it sounds like. A good example is that if you were to spend money on a product, we can round it up to the nearest dollar, and that difference is how much you would save. There's a lot of apps that do this out there nowadays. You spend money to save money. The second most popular rule, with 41% of savings goals applying it, is the guaranteed rule. Just like how it sounds like, you guarantee your savings, right? So you would tie it to an event, such as when you're paid, right? You save no matter what. You save during this time of the month, you save during this event that's gonna happen no matter what throughout the month. And that's sort of a guaranteed rule. Lastly, around 2% of the users follow a non-financial contingency rule. In this case, it's events that aren't financial in nature, but because you do them or they appear or happen, then you would save. A good example is if you go to the gym, right? So if you every time you go to the gym, you will save $200, right? That's an example of a non-financial contingency rule. For full transparency, I'm part of the 41%. So you're gonna hear some biases from me around that. But I personally believe that, hey, I'm gonna save my money first and then I'll spend what's left. I have multiple automated savings rules that apply on my savings account, investment accounts, just to save for retirement, just to save for emergency funds, house funds, and etc. Right? And FIRE. Right? I think the biggest thing here is that if I automate it, then I'll need to think about it and I know it's being saved. The study dives into more detail about how often these rules are applied. Contingent spending tends to have a higher frequency of savings events than guaranteed savings. In other words, we have more spending events throughout the month than we have points in time where we would save no matter what. And the call out here is that guaranteed spending tends to save more per saving event. Just to break it down on a quote from the study, on average, contingent spending rules are triggered 58 times per month with an average of $1.40 saved per transaction. As a comparison, guaranteed saving rules are triggered 5 times per month with an average of $32.57 per transaction. That's a quote directly from the research paper. And what that really translates to and boils down to is that, sure, you have more opportunities to save when you have a contingent spending rule, but you just save more with a guaranteed rule. The implication here is that you save more money if you set a time for it. If you set a guaranteed time to save money or a guaranteed rule around it, rather than tying it to spending money. Or how I would look at it is, if you spend all of your money, how could you have any money to save? The research states that over a 1 year period, guaranteed saving rules saved 1.5 times to 3.5 times more than the other contingent rules. And 1.5 to 3.5 is a huge range, but it also means that more saved regardless of that approach. Are you seeing a disconnect yet that I'm seeing? The most popular approach to savings on the Capital app is not the most efficient approach to savings money. That's 81% of savings goals follow a contingent spending rule, while only 40% follow a guaranteed rule. In other words, most savings goals on the Capital app are not the most efficient. At the end of the day, the hard and fast rule is to pay yourself first. That's something that financial professions have been saying forever now, right? Save first and then spend later. In a sense that if you don't have money in your bank account, how can you afford to spend it, right? We live in a very capitalistic society where marketing is basically entirely focused on how can we get you to spend more money. So much of our economy revolves around you spending money. So it's not a surprise that contingent spending is the most popular rule, because that's where you feel like it's an opportunity to save, right? You spend so much, you spend all the time. So why not save a little as a part of that? But there are still questions to ask ourselves. And for the folks who do follow a contingent spending rule, if they didn't follow it, would they have saved? And would they put in a guaranteed savings rule if that was the case? Hard to say. I still think that guaranteed savings is the most efficient approach. For those folks who are on the contingent spending rule and savings approach, consider switching to a guaranteed savings approach, right? Just stash money away every month without thinking about it. Keep in mind that the dataset is limited and is limited to the users of Capital. Although they are relatable based on their savings goals and how much they save, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're reflective of the entire United States. Still, important lessons for us to take away. The last point I want to touch upon is adoption. Right? When I say adoption, I don't mean adopting these saving strategies. I mean adoption when it comes to personal finance apps. I still think it's important to talk about, even though it's not directly related to the research, but it's sort of the infrastructure that provided the ability for us to even do this research in the first place, for us to track all of these savings goals. Now, many people are adopting technologies to help them save. There's nothing wrong with that. Right? I think that's very efficient, very appropriate, especially if you have difficulty saving and investing. You don't have enough time for it, and also a personal financial advisor or coach is too expensive, right? Which is fine. And who's to say that $3 per month is not going to save you more money down the line? The mantra we talk about is you gotta spend money to make money. Right? True in some cases, not true in many cases. Hopefully that's your case if you are spending money on a personal finance app. The personal finance apps aren't for me. They're fascinating though. I'm always curious about what they come up with next. But at the same time, I'm not a fan of spending money when I can do it myself, which makes me more of a spreadsheet kind of guy. I have all my formulas, all of my data that I'm tracking all in a spreadsheet to just budget, invest, and so on. But if you do see significant savings over a period of time when you apply a personal finance app to your financial life, go for it. Right? The one caveat I want to call out is just don't use it as a crutch. Use those personal finance apps to build good behaviors and sort of have it as a launching off point. At a certain point, you'll feel like, hey, I have a grasp of everything and I should be able to start saving myself, right? Start setting up rules yourself more manually, right? That'll save you money every month, allowing you to reach your goals faster and quicker. Once you feel you have a good idea about everything, just try a month without them and see what that feels like. You can already tell that I'm not sponsored by any of these apps, but that's not saying I'm not open to it, right? So there's not a diss to all the personal finance apps out there. I truly appreciate them. But at the same time, I feel confident that you'll reach a breaking point, right? You'll reach a point where, hey, I can take control of my own financial life and then go from there. Hopefully that study was interesting. It was for me. And with that said, make sure to like and subscribe, and I will see you in the new year.